Hey there, and welcome to Plan Life Right, the podcast dedicated to helping you navigate life's transitions with clarity, confidence, and control. I'm your host, Kevin Ross, and today we are diving into a hot topic that's left a lot of federal employees feeling uncertain. It's called the Deferred Resignation Program, or as you may have seen it, the email with the subject line, Fork in the Road. Or maybe you're one of the thousands of federal employees across the country who are experiencing loss due to reduction in force or agency cutbacks. We're going to talk about that as well because those may be next steps. So, if you're a federal employee, chances are you or someone you know received that email from Office of Personnel Management, OPM, on January 28th, offering you the opportunity to announce your future resignation effective September 30th, 2025. So, at first glance, it sounds like a paid exit plan, which kind of is. It's a chance to resign now, get full pay and benefits up until September, and avoid returning to the office. It's a pretty good deal. But like anything in the federal system, the fine print matters. You're probably there wondering right now, what's up? What do I do next? Well, first, I want to say, let's just take a deep breath. Losing your job's tough. I promise you it's not the end. In fact, it might be an opportunity to reset, rebuild, and even come out ahead. So today, I'm going to walk you through everything you need to know about what happens next. We're going to be breaking it all down. What exactly is the Deferred Resignation Program? What benefits does it actually offer? What are the risks and uncertainties? And then who might actually benefit from this and who may be thinking twice before resigning? How we're going to make the most of your severance, health insurance, and retirement plans. It's really important. And then how we're going to find that new job, get retained, and explore new paths. So by the end of this episode, you'll have clarity, confidence, and a clear strategy with exactly what steps you need to take and how to move forward with confidence. So let's get going. We're going to start with the basics. What is the Deferred Resignation Program? So on January 28th, 2025, over 2 million federal employees received an email from OPM titled Fork in the Road. This email introduced the Deferred Resignation Program, which offers employees a chance to voluntarily resign, but continue to receive full pay and benefits until September 30th, 2025. The email presents it as an opportunity for employees who may want to exit on their own terms rather than face potential layoffs, relocation, or policy changes under the Trump administration's new federal workforce strategy. Now, this isn't a layoff. It's not a RIF, a reduction in force, at least not yet. But we are going to talk about that as well today. Instead, this is an option for federal employees who want to secure their full salary and benefits while planning their next move. Sounds like a pretty good deal. So how do we participate? It's really simple. You just reply in the email with one word, resign. That's it. What's the catch? Well, the catch is your resignation will be final on September 30th, 2025. Okay? Now let's look at all the options here. There are some uncertainties around what happens between now and then. The media is going to come and try to poke holes in a lot of this. The Trump administration is going to come out and say the other thing. So it's really going to be important that you kind of remove the filters and look out for yourself. And we're going to address the things that you need to look out for. So, what are the benefits and risks? The potential benefits of the deferred resignation is you accept the offer. Here's what you're going to get: full pay until September 30th, 2025. Even if you're not actively working, your paycheck continues. I can promise you, having been in the private sector for 30 plus years, uh, that's not the norm. This is a pretty good deal on the outside looking in. You're going to get full benefits, including health and retirement. Your federal health benefits program, your health insurance, your FEHB, your life insurance, your FIGLY, and your retirement benefits all remain intact. There's a no return to office requirement. Prior to this, you may have gotten an email saying it's time for you to return to the office. Well, a lot of people, a lot of federal employees I know during COVID left Washington, D.C. Some that I've met moved to the Tampa Bay area because, today here in February, it's 80 degrees. Uh, there's no snow. It's not a bad place to relocate and work remote. Some of those people have already had received prior to this email, it's time to return to work. So that means they got to find a new place back in DC if they did choose to work remotely. This program exempts you from that rule. That's a really good deal, especially for those remote workers. There's possibility of paid administrative leave. So this email hints that employees could be placed on administrative leave, which what that means is it's essentially a paid break. And in a lot of instances, there's no more work. Some of us, though, will have a workload, but it's going to be tremendously reduced. Okay. It gives you time to find another job. That's fantastic. They're allowing you to pursue outside employment while still being a federal employee. So for some of us, for some employees, especially those close to retirement or had already started considering a career change or now is considering a career change, your feeling of uncertainty about the future, this could really be a smart exit strategy. So if you were one of those people, it's a huge win. It's like you won a small lottery here. But what are some of the risks out there? What are some of the uncertainties? I know you're already hearing it in the media because I've heard it. So let's get into a little bit there. There's no guarantee for administrative leave. The email suggests you may be placed on administrative leave, but it's not guaranteed. Some employees could still be required to keep working until their final day. That's in most situations and it's very few that any corporation gives you X amount of months, 6 months till your final day and says, oh, you don't have to work as well. Most of them say you've got to work, but as long as you're working, you're paid up until the exit date. Okay. So that's a common thing. If you didn't get hey, you're free to do whatever for the next 6 months. In some instances, depending on the department that you're in, you may be required to continue to work. Although I do think it will be a reduced workload. Once you say resign, that resignation is permanent. So you can't kind of second guess yourself there. There may be instances, I'm going to say probably not. So there's no guarantee, but you could ask for a rescission. meaning taking it back, but I don't think so. I don't think they're going to allow it. There's no clear legal basis for the program. We already saw that. I mean, just was it Wednesday, the 12th of February, the courts ruled they could continue on with this. So it was held up for a few days, but it looks like this is now back active. So it's time to say I resign, or it's time to say I'm going to wait and see. Okay, we're going to dive into that more in depth here. One of the things you're going to hear is there's potential budget issues. The federal budget's still uncertain. If the funding run out, there's no guarantee to those employees that they'll actually get paid through September. Let's be realistic, though. It seems like every few months we hear the government's going to shut down. And in the last minute, Congress comes together and they agree to extend the budget. And so nothing gets shut down. That's not a guarantee, though. In the last 50 years, the government's actually shut down 21 times. Okay. I think in the mid 90s, there was several times that it shut down. I believe that there could be a real threat of a shutdown if this gets held up in court. You're going to have a lot of the unions filing petitions to try to make this go away. I don't think that's going to happen. You've got a president that's quite familiar with the courts. He's been in them the last few years. So I think they're prepared for this. I don't think that the unions were, and I think that this is going to proceed on, especially based on what we saw in a few short days, where the governments or where the courts have said this is a go ahead. So um, the other thing that can happen is they can enact a RIF. Okay, so we'll get into what the difference between a RIF and the fork in the road email is. If that happens, all bets are off. Okay, they're already talking about removing complete agencies. I think the Department of Education was one that they're saying they want to disband it. They'll reopen some form of the Department of Education. It's going to be slimmed down and look a lot different. I can tell you that. I know that the Trump administration wants to bring that back to the states and let them run the department of or run their own education programs, but there'll still be an oversight with the federal government. I just don't think it's going to be to the capacity that it was. So if you're in that RIF, you may have an opportunity to reapply down the road. Okay, there's an impact on future federal employment. So while this email states that you can return to federal service later, it is unclear if the agencies will consider those who left through this program as priority candidates. Again, I don't think you need to worry. If you're truly good at your job, you're going to have an opportunity. Okay. Uh, I don't think it's going to be the standard quo that it once was, because a lot of the decision making people in these departments have been removed, and I think there are going to be several more. So the old way, from what I'm understanding from some inside sources up in Washington, that it's going to look different. And the old way, they are doing their best to make that go away. So for those of you that were frustrated with the old way and feeling like you reached a ceiling, that could be removed. For those of you that were the ceiling, that may be an issue if you're trying to stay on. Okay. So if you leave on your own, you've got a really good severance package. It's You're not going to find, I don't think, anything really better out there uh, in the private sector. So it's the advantage of being in the federal workforce if you decide to send back the email, resign. What if you don't? Well, there's this thing called a RIF, which is a reduction in force. And here's what it means for you. So imagine this: you've worked in the federal job for years, maybe even decades. You've given your best effort. You've served your agencies. You built a career around this. And then one day the announcement, and you survived the first go round. And then one day you get the announcement, and it's going to say something to the tune of this: due to budget cuts, restructuring, or agency realignment, positions are being eliminated. So here's the thing: a RIF, it isn't personal. It may feel personal, and boy, it sure does sound like it if you're watching the media here, but it's not. You sitting in that chair, that cubicle at your federal employment job, or if you're working remote in your comfort of your own home, it's not personable. It's not personal. It's uh, it's just a mean. It doesn't mean that your work wasn't even valuable. It's just a mean to the end. It's a shrinking of the government, which is what Trump ran on and what the people voted him in on. They wanted to shrink the government, and now you got Doge exposing things that I had I had no idea that any of that was going on. And I think most taxpayers didn't have any idea. And I bet most federal employees didn't have any understanding of where all the money was going. But you're going to have rights and options if you do get riffed. Okay. So let's talk about that. One of the other things that could happen, which um, was kind of the old way, the normal way, they want to get rid of you, but they don't want to eliminate the position, because if they eliminate the position, there's hurdles to go through to get to get things out there that well, we don't really need this person, but we do need to keep the position. So what we're going to do is downgrade this person. So we're going to downgrade that person, and here's how that works. There's something called a pay retention, and how that works is this: if you've worked at least 52 consecutive weeks at your current grade, you'll keep that higher salary for 2 years, even if you're placed in a lower position. So that means for you, there's no immediate pay cut while you plan your next move. Okay. But after the 2 years, if you're still in that lower grade position, your pay will adjust gradually, meaning you'll still earn more than the normal rate for that grade position, but not what you had prior to the downgrade. Okay. You receive a priority and repromotion. So some agencies have had, I don't know if they will continue to have, an internal placement program that allows you to apply for positions at your former grade level before external candidates are considered. So let's go back. If you took and did the resign, and they do this major shrink, and you're sitting there thinking, who's going to do my job? There's a chance that by September, there may be an opening for a job similar or even higher that you would not have had access to because of your grade. Okay. Because typically how it works, you can't move up 6 grades from your existing grade. You're kind of limited. You got to ratchet up, right? Um, so the takeaway here is this: if you're lucky enough if you wanted to stay and you're lucky enough that you weren't RIF, but you got downgraded, if you call that lucky, your paycheck isn't cut overnight. Okay. You still got a chance to look for things as you're doing your work. I can promise you though, if all of these people take the resign, not all 2 million, but a large majority do, probably your workload's going to increase. Okay. So you may not, if you got downgraded, you may not have a whole lot of time to look for another job, like those who took um, the the uh, the fork in the road. So let's talk about what happens if and when you're separated. So what kind of benefits do you get? So if your position's eliminated and you're not reassigned, you're going to likely qualify for severance pay. So depending on your years of service, you could receive up to a full year of salary paid in biweekly installments. Those unemployment benefits, the Department of Labor provides a weekly income support while you search for new work. Your health insurance continuation, FEHPB, that coverage remains free for 31 days. That's going to go by like that. But it can extend for up to 18 months if needed. And then there are retirement options. So if you worked at least 5 years, your retirement benefits don't disappear. You've got some options. You can defer them, you can roll them into another plan. Um, the, so there's some things we'll dive in on that retirement option as well. How does the severance pay work? So you get 1 week of pay per year of service for up to 10 years. Kind of makes the fork in the road email pretty attractive because you're getting, especially if you don't have that many years of service. If you've worked over 10 years, you get 2 weeks of pay per year. So say you work 11 years, that's 22 weeks of pay. Okay. So almost 6 months. So if we're comparing the two options, doing the fork of the road, sending back Resign is better if you're your 11-year employee to take that as opposed to you making a bet that I may be ripped, maybe I won't be ripped. If you are, this is the standard that's been in place for many, many years. And then they've got this also in the pamphlet. There's additional pay if you've been there for over 40. But the max, the cap of severance pay you can get is 1 year of salary. Okay. So the takeaway here is this: losing your job doesn't mean losing everything. You'll have some time and resources to land on your feet, which is not the norm in the private sector. So many cases out there, you get a term. Now it's more of a termination email. A lot of times they don't even meet face to face anymore. It used to be a face to face meeting, and while you're in the meeting being let go, there's somebody putting all your stuff in your cubicle or your office in a box, or it gets shipped to you later and they escort you out. That's real life. Okay. So to have some options here as a federal employee, as bad as things seem, in the grand scheme of things, it's better than a lot of us in the private sector have experienced in our lifetimes. Okay. So one of the biggest things for federal employees here that are experiencing this, and for anyone that's lost a job, the first thing, well, what happens to my benefits? Will I lose my benefits? So under the federal health benefits program, you get 31 days of free coverage after separation. with an option to continue for 18 months, but you're paying full premium plus a 2% fee. So what that means is you're paying both your share that you've always paid, but you're also paying the government share as well. Okay. Same thing in the private sector as far as that option. Your dependents, though, they can keep coverage for up to 36 months, which is a pretty good deal, but you will be paying a pretty hefty price. I can promise you can go to healthcare.gov and get a much better deal. Okay. So there's that option as well. There's another thing that's really important that you got to pay attention because there's a lot of rules around it. And you can reach out to us. We can give advice to this because it can get tricky and it can get confusing. You want to make sure that you've got someone that knows the ins and outs on what to do here. A lot might tell you they do, but unless they've been trained on how to, probably don't. Okay. What that is a thrift savings plan in retirement. So the options are this: you can leave your money in the TSP account. I highly recommend that you do not do that. There are fees inside of this that that are really, really hard to understand and disseminate. Okay. And that's the same thing for those that have 401k. So what is my real fee? That's a whole nother podcast. We might do that podcast actually. There's an option to roll it into an IRA to avoid penalties. You definitely, if you can, roll that into an IRA because otherwise you're faced with taxes. Because remember, you've never had to pay a tax on your TSP account, okay? Federal government, and they're wanting to tax that money because it's never been taxed, okay? So it's a good option, but how do you do it? What's the right way to do it? And then what do you move it into? Well, that depends on your personal situation. So your friend down the road that's facing the same thing that you are down at the next cube or 5 cubes down that is facing the same thing that you are, you could be in two entirely different scenarios. You may be looking at them. Well, we're relatively the same age. We've got kind of the same length of work at the government. That's true. But outside of that, people have different issues and things that they've dealt with. Okay. And that's a personal thing. And so don't go do what your neighbor did 4 cubes down because he's now the expert because he did it a week or 2 weeks before you did, or she did it a week or 2 weeks before you did. Get professional advice that comes in and does a full analysis of where you are. And there's a lot of things that need to be discussed in those analyses. Okay. Here's a red flag. If you withdraw before age 55, you're going to have a 10% penalty. So you got to plan carefully. That's the worst idea out there, especially if you don't know the rules. If you know the rules, there's ways to avoid it. And you want to make sure that you avoid it. So, what is that 10% penalty? I've had people, actually federal employees, come to me and say, 10%, that's not that big. I'm taking out $50,000. So I'll pay the $5,000 tax. It's not so fast. That 10% penalty is in top of whatever your tax bracket is. So there's different things that you got to have an expert come in and look at. Don't try to do it alone. You're already going to feel alone with this. So take comfort in knowing that if you get the right person involved, you can have a plan that's right for you and fit your specific needs. So Takeaway here is you're not going to lose your retirement, but you do need to make smart decisions about rolling it over, when you want to withdraw funds, or if you need to withdraw funds right now. So don't fret. We can give you guidance there. Who should consider taking the offer? It's not a one size fits all, right? Um, who's going to benefit from accepting a deferred resignation? It's going to make sense for you, or it may make sense for you if you're already planning on retiring. So let's just say you're in your late 50s and you're like, I've been here 25 years. I'm done. Um, take it. It's a no brainer. Okay. Maybe you're a few years out. Take it. It's a no brainer. It's not the norm. Okay. Um, you get a guaranteed paycheck while you're job searching. That's smart, right? Again, not the norm. If you work in a high demand field at your government job, I promise you finding a new job won't be difficult. There are a lot of private sector companies that want your expertise in the field that you're in. Okay. Um, if you are open into working in the private sector, you can opt to work as a contractor. Now, I know a lot of federal employees that went that route. So they work for a private contractor and they're doing really well. I mean, some of them to the tune of 3, 4 times of what they were getting paid on their government salary. So think of this. They got their retirement plan, their TSP that they rolled over for when they do retire. They know how to turn that on, but they're now in the private sector and they're contributing to a 401k. And hopefully, if they've got a smart advisor, they're doing a Roth 401k and not a another type of 401k, the regular 401k that most of us are familiar with. Okay. So, what if you're thinking twice about this? You know, it's really about the job security. You can't afford the uncertainty. You're already freaking out. Like, all right, I don't want to take it because I don't know what my options are. So I'm just going to ride this thing out. Okay. In most cases, that's everyone. Okay. So unless you were thinking the example that I mentioned before, you are probably in the seat of most of those that receive the email. What do? I don't want to do anything because the uncertainty is just overwhelming, and it is. I understand that very well. If you enjoy federal services and you don't want to risk losing your career, I promise you probably aren't going to have a choice. Okay. So maybe taking that opportunity is a good thing, or waiting and seeing what happens in the courts. You probably will be faced at some point or be given a RIF, okay, or a threat to shut down the government, which now suspends everything. So there's a lot of uncertainty going down that road if you decide to wait it out. But for some of you, that may be the best peace of mind. Okay. Let's dive next into finding a new job or career path. So there's a bunch of programs out there, a few programs anyway. There's the federal reemployment programs that are existing. I think these are going to look a little bit different here in the future, but what's out there right now, you've got the Career Transition Assistance Program, CTAP, which is a priority for hiring federal employees to federal jobs. There's a redemption priority list. So that's the first choice for agency openings that list is going to be evolving. But if you're watching, you may find a great opportunity that you wouldn't have had based on your current classification. Okay. There's also training and retraining options. There's the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act that offers free job training. You might see it as WIOA. Okay, that's Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. And then there's also local state programs that may offer certifications for tech, healthcare, and skilled trades. What if you're exploring private sector? So there's many federal employees out there transitioning into consulting, teaching, or other private sector jobs using their expertise. So you can go to sites like USA Jobs, there's Indeed, there's LinkedIn, there's several others out there, but they'll be there to help you match opportunities. So the takeaway here is losing your job, it's a reset. I want you to, it's a reset. It's not a roadblock. Remember that. Losing your job here, it's a reset, not a roadblock. There are, and I promise you, new opportunities awaiting you. So let's wrap this thing up. If you take the offer, be 100% sure before you send out your reply, resign. Okay. Make sure you've got some clarity. You don't have to know everything behind it. There's experts out there that can help with the rollovers and stuff, but the resign's a good opportunity, giving you essentially 6+ months to job hunt and plan your next steps, which is not the norm. If the RIF doesn't work that way, okay, this is a pretty good deal. It also, I want to reiterate, make sure you understand your retirement options, the severance pay, and the benefits. Okay. Now, if you decline the offer, stay informed. I promise you, changes are coming into the federal workforce. It's hard to ignore. And then watch for future layoffs for policy shifts because there's going to be many. And remember, this is so important. You're not alone. You're going to feel like you're alone. You're not alone. There's programs, there's benefits, there's job opportunities waiting for you. So take advantage of the severance, the unemployment that you have coming your way, and those training resources that are out there. And use this chance to explore something new. I know at the end you're going to be glad you did. That's the episode for today of Plan Life Right, Fork in the Road. If this has helped you, make sure you like, subscribe, and share with your fellow federal employees, or someone you know who is a federal employee who you think may need it, or maybe even in the private sector, things are a little bit different. But make sure that you send this podcast to them. You can also follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. Our next episode will be how to make smart financial moves that will set you up for life. So until next time, plan your life right. I'm Kevin Ross, and have a great day.